NFL. I don't think he was.
Well, you'd be wrong. So he was. I mean,
No,
he was.
I don't think he qualified as a head coach. I think he was pretty bad at his job. So Denny's.
Well, yeah, but you're still a radio host.
Okay. Yes, but it's still bad at my job.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I read a Thursday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, Dylan Michaels. We head up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours we've got you. Boy, a lot of stuff to get into and talk about today. A busy show. We will talk with Craig Stout, KCSN, KC Sports Network, KC Laboratory Podcast coming up at 11 o'clock. We will get his thoughts on Chiefs and Broncos, wrap that thing up, and look ahead to Chiefs and Dolphins, a couple of 6-2 teams sitting atop the AFC with a couple of other 6-2 teams with Ravens and Jags in a big-time swing game one way or another for the Chiefs, win or lose, and we will find out what happens about 11:30 when Josh Briscoe's on the air talking about whatever the final score may be, taking some happy calls or some frustrated calls. Let's hope it's the former, but certainly reality of the NFL is that it could be the latter. This game sitting at 1.5 now. It's moved a point towards the Dolphins from yesterday morning. Yesterday morning was 2.5 for the Chiefs, and now it is 1.5. So, and the total has come down a half point too, just as a heads up. The game started at 2.5, went down to 2, went back up to 2.5, now at 1.5. So there you go. So we'll talk some Chiefs football today. Craig Stout coming up at 11 o'clock. The press conferences for the Chiefs today will feature the coordinators, and we'll see which players will be at the podium today. But tomorrow we'll hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, so we will not hear from them today, as the Chiefs later this afternoon will get on a flight and head to Germany and try to get acclimated and practice on Friday, their typical Friday walkthrough practice, whatever they'll be doing on Saturday, and getting ready for the Dolphins on Sunday. So we'll hear from the Chiefs coordinators coming up at the end of the 11 o'clock hour, and then we'll play some sports or leisure today, presented by Johnny's Tavern. $25 to Johnny's Tavern that we are giving away if you get a sports question and a leisure question right. We'll do that at 1 o'clock. Have a little fun with that. 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-912-4810, the text line. Let's get into the show. Yesterday when we were on the air, the New Heights podcast had just wrapped up. And unfortunately, you unless you're doing it in real time, cannot download and cut some clips of that while they're actually releasing that live. But after it's over, do whatever you really want with it. And so you may have heard these clips already, but I absolutely want to get into them because this is a question that I think we'll be asking. We've asked this week. We've asked a couple of weeks before. Last week didn't really have that much of a conversation around them because, the offense looked pretty good and scored 31 points against the Chargers. And going into a game against the Dolphins, it's pretty crucial that they go and play well. Here's Travis Kelce weighing in on New Heights podcast, what happened in that Denver game that is very forgettable now.
We got to do it. We got to talk about it.
Yeah.
Broncos 24, Chiefs 9.
That's embarrassing, man.
What are your initial thoughts? What do you want to talk about? I'll let you just talk.
Felt awkward during the game, like we couldn't get anything going. You're talking about that sense of urgency on the sideline. It didn't feel like we had too much of that, and when we finally had that sense of urgency, turn the ball over and get it ripped right out of our hearts. Our defense is playing their tail off, man. And for us to keep turning it over, putting them in bad positions and then saving our tail, it's getting real one-sided. And I don't think I've been in a situation where we've stalled this much, like as an offense throughout the year, definitely at this point in the season. We got a lot of guys that usually figure out how to get this thing going. And you know what? It's frustrating, man. Not putting up touchdowns week after week after week it's getting old.
Chiefs fans echo that. And not a surprise that is the reaction in the locker room. I think it was probably a rough flight home. Certainly for Patrick Mahomes, is still dealing with the flu, but for the whole game, the whole team, the flight home from Denver was probably pretty rough. And echoing those sentiments, probably in the locker room and this week at practice, getting ready for Germany. But the question that'll be asked this week, has been asked this week, and we'll be watching to see on Sunday is, okay, well, how do you fix it? And here's Travis Kelce weighing in on that.
It starts with not killing ourselves, man. I mean, just daggers, just guys running the wrong routes, guys not making blocks, guys dropping the football. It's frustrating, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge at this point in the career, or I'm not only speaking for myself, but it's a challenge at this point in the season to get this thing right now before it gets out of control and it gets really bad. One of the things we wanted to do this week was attack. As an offense, feel like we're on the attack. Like, don't go in there trying to feel the game out. Just be on the attack. And I think rewatching that film, Denver just had a lot more energy. You know, I think they looked at that 0-15 the last 15 times we played them, and went into that game a little bit more hungry, man. And that's making me sick to my stomach to feel or even say. But I think we gotta have a gut check, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and that's what we're doing.
So there's a lot there, meat on the bone, to talk about this Chiefs offense from just those comments from Travis Kelce. The talk about it being embarrassing, the talk about him feeling like they didn't match the energy that the Broncos brought, that they've got to do that. They've got to take the game to the other team. They got to be more aggressive. Enough of just going out there and feeling it out and seeing what's going on. Just go and smack a team in the mouth right from the beginning. Let's hope that happens coming up on Sunday. A couple things with that second part. We got to fix it before it gets out of control and gets really bad. Now, I don't think the team and the players regress as the season goes on in terms of their ability and understanding of the offense and understanding where they're supposed to be on routes and what the defenses are doing. I read that as it gets out of control and gets really bad with people getting frustrated and annoyed, and it starts to crumble and crack and fissure in the locker room with guys of running wrong routes, dropping the ball, missed blocks. They know who's doing that. They're watching the film together. The players know. It's like the whole thing at practice. Like, well, players know who the players are at practice. And if coaches aren't playing the players that the players know are the best players, you start to wonder what the coach is doing and what are they not seeing, because we understand who a player is. And they watch the film. And they understand who's making mistakes. And everybody takes accountability for it, because nobody has played perfect football this year. And in losses, nobody played perfect football on Sunday against the Broncos. I don't care who it is. Not one person played perfect football in that game. Nor will there ever be a game where a player will play perfect football throughout 60 minutes of ball. And as they're watching the film, they know who's dropping the ball, who's running the wrong routes, who's missing a block. And as he said, get it fixed before it gets out of control and gets really bad. I think that's gets out of control and gets really bad between the ears, and you start to bicker and be upset at different guys, and you see or you fear a little bit more of the, well, we've seen in other places, the Josh Allen, the Stephon Diggs, the Des Bryant at times on the sidelines, the Odell Beckham Jr. on the sidelines, like some of those things blowing up. The things, quite frankly, that we saw at times, Josh, with players and Eric Bieniemy, but not necessarily player on player. Right. And maybe that's Eric Bieniemy created one common enemy that Eric B. in me. I
think that works
for them. Eric B. the enemy.
B plus.
Thank you. B enemy plus. Maybe that was an F. Maybe that was part of his strategy of holding him to a certain level and the details, and okay, well, bleep him, and your frustration is taken out on him as opposed to each other. If there's not that sort of person that's willing to step up and like, that's fine, I'll be the target. That's great, because you guys aren't going to be the targets between each other. What do you hear from that from Travis Kelce? And if you have any other takeaways, because there's a lot of meat on the bone from those two comments from Kelce.
Yeah, I agree with the stuff that you said, so I'm going to pick on two other things there, because I think you're right about all of that. The energy he mentions again, energy was a word that came up from Mahomes, and Justin Reed talked about it a little bit, being on their heels and whatnot. Different terms of that again, like we talked about yesterday. I think you can see them talk about energy after the Lions loss and after the Broncos loss. And I don't think it always I don't think you can always say we lost, therefore they out-energied us, because I don't think that's an excuse you hear every time, because sometimes you can say we played our hearts out, they played great ball, we put out a decent performance, and we didn't do enough at the end, whatever. But typically, I don't think NFL players like to say they were on the wrong side of the energy spectrum in a game like that, because that feels a little bit embarrassing, a little bit like Amina, who talked about yesterday. If you are getting an extra level of focus and energy for a game, it means it's above your standard, so your standard isn't high enough. Now, again, that's a very, very tricky needle to thread, because not every game is the Super Bowl, and sometimes you do play in Super Bowls, and it is actually different. But that's one thing that, to me, the most interesting single bit of any of this, and I've listened to most of this episode now, but the most interesting thing I've heard Travis Kelce say so far is, well, this week we're going to go out there and we, on the offense, need to be on the attack, not letting the defense dictate what we're doing for us to them. And it's fascinating because that has not been the company line for the vast majority of Patrick Mahomes' time in Kansas City. It has been, hey, take what the defense is giving you. They're going to play some real deep coverages to try to keep everything down in front. Take those checkdowns, take those little chunks, keep the chains moving. Be patient. And I'm not saying that Kelce doesn't think patience is going to be a part of the offensive game plan against the Dolphins, but like I know we'll talk about later that Seth Kaiser's got his Mahomes film review. Did it early this week, which I really appreciate. So we get to talk about it today. Thank you, Seth.
That's right.
But
about time.
Mahomes wasn't perfect. Again, few players ever are, even for small stretches. But there are a couple of times where it's like, well, he actually had MVS down the seam here on a concept where the Broncos were bringing extra pressure. That's what that super quick vertical seam route is there for.
And that was one of those to where MVS won quickly.
Yes.
It wasn't a ramp up to let him get to top speed. That was, he beat the defenders. It was there. Mahomes was looking in that direction, and for whatever reason, just brought the ball down and then looked elsewhere.
And it's like,
could have been a touchdown.
It's not even just that he won quickly. It's that he won quickly and, to my eye, should have been the first read with what the defense was showing, right? Like they actually, in a season where I also think this has been a problem, I think they had the right receiver run on the right route at the right time for the right counterpunch, and Mahomes didn't just throw a haymaker right there, which he's thrown in the past. And so they're going to have to still not be unnecessarily aggressive or, to go back a few weeks, throw the deep ball even if he's double covered. That's
throw it no matter what, coach.
That's not what they're going to do.
Hard no.
But taking a shot where it's a 50-50 ball that means 50% to MVS, 50% to the grass in front of MVS is okay with me if it's going to be a sped-up, risky kind of fast-moving play like the one that I was just referring to. And it's interesting about, again, the idea that the offense has let the defense dictate the game plan and the game speed to them. I'm very excited to see what an attacking Chiefs offense looks like.
Well, having never played at the professional level.
What?
Or
well, me neither.
More or more than a higher level than varsity football, or really even varsity football, and never coached it at a level of anything ever. But man, just really love watching football. Couple things as we joke. While there's a lot of blame to go around in that Denver game, and Mahomes is not infallible. Mahomes has some blame in that game. Mahomes hasn't played his best football so far this year. There have been stretches, but there have been some the offense. What's going on? Mahomes isn't putting up those crazy numbers that we've seen at times, and this offense is not scoring in the 20s for some reason. The defense is saving him. There were two plays yesterday or on Sunday, and watching the All 22 earlier this week, and then hearing Kelce talk about that, whether it's wrong routes or drop passes. I don't know a couple of these I don't think were wrong routes. I think they were maybe wrong angles on the routes. The first possession of the second half after Rashee Rice dropped the football, there was a 3rd down and 2, and he overthrows Justin Watson, which was sort of that corner route on the sideline, and it looked like, where Watson was heading, it flies over his right shoulder and falls incomplete by like a yard or two. That is one to where, when I wrote it down as a note, it was, had Watson overthrew him. He's just not playing well. Had Watson overthrew him. Then I watch it again, and as Watson is going to his break and starting to head that way, Mahomes is throwing it. I think Mahomes is expecting Watson to go more towards the pylon and not to the sideline. Because when you see Watson heading to the sideline, when the ball's in the air, he starts to turn his route upfield. If he was running to exactly where the ball landed, I think it's a sideline catch for Justin Watson, or at least an attempted sideline catch for Justin Watson. He may drop the ball. People were struggling in the game on Sunday. That was one example to where I think Mahomes put it to where he expected somebody to go. And that's somebody he trusts.
Yep.
The next one is the one that we've talked about ad nauseum this week, and we've discussed it from the not catching the football or not tracking the football, and it's Sky Moore. And when I watch the All-22 in the bunch formation at the top and Sky Moore is running his route over, there is a safety that's